wake me up to another good morning, time to go.
Are you ready to explore God's wild and wonderful world? Welcome to the Nat Theo podcast. I'm your host, Erin Lynham. I'm a certified master naturalist, Bible teacher, and author, and I am so excited to dive into God's written word, the Bible, and His created world with you. Have you ever balanced across something? Maybe at the playground or in the woods? When I was a little girl, I did gymnastics, and every week we would practice walking across a balance beam and doing tricks on it. Now, I don't balance across beams anymore, but I do often find myself out in the woods with my family, balancing across things like logs over a river. Balancing can be a lot of fun. And did you know that there is an animal that God designed to be a master balancer? Today, we are learning all about Bighorn sheep. Bighorn sheep are the master parkour animals of the mountains. Have you ever seen someone doing the sport of parkour? They run and jump and balance all over different kinds of obstacles. And that is exactly what a bighorn sheep does. Parkour comes from a phrase that means the art of movement. And as we will see, God designed bighorn sheep to move quite artfully. Here is our trail map.
Are you ready?
We are going to learn what is a bighorn sheep and why do bighorn sheep ram into each other. We will discover why and how bighorn sheep balance on cliffs. And how did God design bighorns to live well through rest? And finally, how can we follow God's lead when the way gets tough? Before we hit the trail, let's thank our sponsors that made this lesson possible. We would love to connect with you at the Rocky Mountain Homeschool Conference, June 12th to the 14th in Denver. Use the coupon code in our show notes to save $30 off your registration. Attend this incredible family-friendly conference and make sure to stop by the Nat Theo Nature Museum booth to meet our live axolotls. Kids will enjoy interactive activities while parents get equipped through engaging workshops. Plus, there's a special free bonus day on June 11th for new homeschoolers and unique learner families. You can register at RockyMountainHomeschoolConference.com and make sure to use the coupon code in our show notes to save $30. Families, get ready for an adventure like no other. Join the Creation Museum's Family Adventure Days for an unforgettable adventure into God's wild and wonderful world. Explore incredible hands-on exhibits, including the life-size Garden of Eden display, Noah's Ark, and one of my favorites from my family's visit, the History of the Bible exhibit. Enjoy all sorts of free gifts and experiences and exclusive discounts during the Family Adventure Days. And kids 10 and under always get into the museum for free. Visit creationmuseum.org/family-days or the link in our show notes to plan your visit today. Here is our trivia question. What is a baby bighorn sheep called? Take a guess and we will find out at the end of our lesson. And Nat Theo Club members, be sure to click over at the end of this lesson for our bonus video to discover 2 more amazing mountain climbing animals. And hear a story of when I encountered one of these animals in the wild. You can access that bonus video at the link in our show notes or in your Nat Theo Club dashboard. And listeners, if you would like access to our weekly bonus videos, activity guides, and nature devotions, you can find those in the Nat Theo Club and learn more and join at the link in our show notes. The first time I saw bighorn sheep in the wild was very special, not only because these animals are amazing to see, but because they were balancing way up high on rocky cliff edges. And they had babies with them. Now, I cannot tell you what those babies are called because that would give away the answer to our trivia question. But let me tell you, they were cute. In fact, since then, I have had a few chances to see baby bighorn sheep in the wild, and I think they are one of the cutest animal babies. I'll never forget that first time seeing them. We were visiting Colorado before we decided to move here. In fact, I think that experience of seeing the bighorn sheep with their babies in the wild was one of the reasons that I wanted to move here. We were driving up a canyon road, winding along a river with rocky cliff edges to each side of us. We noticed at one point that some cars were pulling over to the side of the road, and people were looking high up into the cliffs. When we followed their gaze, we saw the wild bighorn sheep doing their amazing balancing act. Now, before we discover how bighorns perform this balancing act and don't fall into the river below, let's learn what a bighorn sheep is. A bighorn sheep is, well, what it sounds like. It is a sheep with big horns. Bighorn sheep are found in the wild in mountainous areas of Western North America, from southern Canada through the United States and down south into Mexico. Now, bighorns are not like the fuzzy, fleece-covered sheep that you might expect to see on a farm. They do have white fleece, but it is short and covered by thicker guard hairs, which are brown. In fact, a bighorn's color is similar to that of a deer. They also have large, muscle-filled bodies. Both male and female bighorn sheep have horns, but they look different from each other. In fact, the horns are a good way to tell whether a bighorn sheep is a male or a female. Female bighorns, who are called ewes, have short horns that grow to a simple curve point above their heads. Male bighorn sheep are called rams, and they have large, thick horns curling around their faces. A bighorn sheep's horns are very different than, say, a deer's antlers. You see, deer antlers only grow on male deer, and they fall off and grow back every year. Horns on a bighorn, however, grow on both female and male animals and stay with the animal for life. They do not fall off and grow back. The horn has two main parts, a core made of bone, which we cannot see, and then over that bone, there is a large sheath or covering that we see, and that is made of a material called keratin. When God designed keratin, which is a type of protein, He used it to make so many different and creative things in nature, including hair, nails, claws, scales, feathers, horns, hooves, and even the outermost layer of your skin. Keratin is very versatile. Do you know what versatile means? Something that is versatile can be used for many different things. Duct tape can be versatile, used to fix many things, at least for a short amount of time. A Swiss Army knife is also very versatile and can be used for many purposes. I enjoy thinking about how versatile keratin is, found in bighorn sheep's horns and bird feathers and in a turtle shell and even in my own hair. I just love thinking about God back at creation, inventing everything as He spoke it into place. And as He spoke the creatures into place, He created this keratin material and used it in so many different and beautiful and useful ways. All right, we cannot talk about bighorn sheep's horns without answering the question, why do bighorn sheep ram into each other? If you have ever seen a video of bighorn sheep ramming into each other, you know how crazy this looks, especially when viewed in slow motion. Nat Theo Club members, you can see a video of this in today's lesson activity guide. When bighorns ram into each other, it is quite violent. When they slam into each other, you can hear the loud crashing sound of their massive curled horns as they collide. Why do they do this? Only the male bighorns ram into each other. which is where they get their name, as rams. Male bighorns do this during a certain season called the rut, when they are competing for the attention of females in order to breed. So this is kind of like a competition. Male bighorns rush toward each other very quickly. In fact, they will run toward each other at up to 40 miles per hour, or around 64 kilometers per hour. Sometimes they begin from a threatening standing position and then go back down and run toward each other. At that high speed, they crash into each other using their heads with their big curled horns. They will continue this, ramming into each other, until one of the males gives up and walks away, leaving the other male as the victor, and with more dominance, meaning that he is the one who will get to stick around with the females. If you watch a bighorn sheep do this, you would probably think that hurts quite a bit. In fact, the same impact would instantly kill a human. So how do bighorn sheep survive this constant ramming impact without their horns or brains being damaged? God designed the horns of a bighorn sheep in a fascinating way to survive such incredible impact. Do you remember that we learned that the horn is made of bone and a covering made from keratin? Well, the inside bone is not some simple bone. It is very detailed. Okay, we're going to travel inside that outer horn sheath made of keratin and take a closer look at the bone inside. Are you ready? It's going to get a bit sciencey. Inside the outer sheath, there is a lot of hollow space. You see, the actual horn is not full of bone. Bone only fills a part of it. That bone inside the sheath, that is part of the bighorn's skull, has 2 layers. The outer layer is a thin layer called cortical bone. Cortical bone is also called dense bone. It is a very hard and strong outer layer of bone. You actually have cortical bone around your large bones, like in your arms and legs, to protect them. Looking at the bighorn sheep's horns, inside that cortical bone is another type of bone that is kind of like foam. Well, very hard foam. This inside type of bone is called trabecular bone. It is also known as spongy bone. You also have this spongy type of bone at the end of your long bones, like in your arms and legs, as well as in your spine or backbone. So think about the layers of a bighorn sheep's horn. The outer sheath layer is what we see, and it is made of that material called keratin. The core inside is made of 2 special bone layers, the hard cortical bone layer, and then that spongy trabecular bone inside. This unique design of a horn allows the bighorn sheep to absorb heavy impact without breaking bones or suffering brain damage. Let's look at another unique thing that bighorn sheep do, and that is their balancing act. Do you remember I shared with you that the first time I saw bighorn sheep in the wild, they were with babies and they were climbing way up high on cliffs. I could not believe what amazing climbers they are, and I did not understand how they did not fall off the ledge into the river below. You see, bighorn sheep can be rather large. The males, or rams, can weigh over 300 pounds, or 136 kilograms, and they can be around 3 feet, or 1 meter tall from hoof to shoulder. And yet, even though they are large and heavy, bighorn sheep can walk on cliff ledges that are only 2 inches, or around 5 centimeters wide. Not only do they balance and walk across cliff ledges that seem impossibly small, but they can run and scramble up and down steep rock cliffs. They are not slow climbers either. They can run up a slope at around 15 miles per hour or 24 kilometers per hour. So how do they climb and balance so well? One reason is that God designed them with special hooves that are a bit soft and spongy inside. Do you know how the inside of your tennis shoe or sneaker is a bit soft and flexible? Like when you bend your foot inside of it, the shoe can bend also. A bighorn's hoof is kind of like that, allowing the animal to navigate tricky cliff sides and rocks. Because they are such great climbers, bighorns can escape predators that might want to hunt and eat them. They do this by running up into tough cliffs that their predators cannot follow them into. This is one way that God designed bighorn sheep to stay safe. All right, it is time to learn how a bighorn sheep rests. This month, in celebration of my new book, The Nature of Rest, we are looking at creatures in that book and answering the question, how does this animal live well through rest? You see, God designed everything in nature to thrive or live well through His design of rest, and that includes bighorn sheep. When I have watched bighorn sheep navigate across cliff sides, it does not look very restful. In fact, it looks exhausting. And it would be to me if I was trying to cross the same cliffside. But to the bighorn sheep, it is simply part of their regular routine. But bighorn sheep cannot always be climbing. They need rest. I have a question for you. What happens after you have been climbing up a tree or over rocks for a while? You eventually get tired, don't you? You might sit on a tree branch or relax on one of the rocks to rest a while. A bighorn sheep needs to do this also, and so do those cute little babies of theirs. Baby bighorn sheep are born climbers. Within about an hour of being born, they can stand up. And within only a day or two, they can climb steep ledges with their mamas and herds. To stay safe and alive, the baby bighorn needs to follow after its mama as she leads her baby to a safe resting place away from predators. So the way may be difficult as a newborn baby learns to navigate steep rock faces, but it's worth the struggle because its mama can lead it to a safe place where it can get some rest. You know, like the baby bighorn sheep, we might face a tough way ahead of us. Sometimes it might be an actual tough path, like when we are hiking. Or it might be a hard time in life as we navigate difficult decisions or circumstances. Just like the baby bighorn following its mother and the herd, we can follow God as He masterfully guides us to safe resting places. Picture those mama bighorns with their brand new babies climbing across treacherous cliffs and then coming into a beautiful meadow in which they can rest. It makes me think of Psalm 23, 1-2, which says, "The Lord is my shepherd. I have everything I need. He lets me rest in green pastures. He leads me to calm water." Have you ever been on a hard hike? One time my family and I were hiking in the mountains. We were in a new area that we had never before visited. And when we left for the trail that we were going to hike, it was beautiful and sunny outside. But when we arrived at the trail, it was a very steep mountain covered in snow. We were not expecting that. We decided to hike and see how far we could make it on that trail. Now we knew that we were safe. We were only going a couple of miles away from the trailhead, and we had what we needed. But it was a very difficult hike. At one point, when we got high up on the mountain, one of my sons became nervous. To be honest, I was a bit nervous too. I often get nervous when I am way up high on a mountain where the trees are no longer surrounding us. My son didn't know if he could keep going, so I encouraged him. I held his hand and I walked right next to him so he felt safe. Bravely, he took one step after another, and he made it all the way to the top of the mountain. It was a huge and brave accomplishment. As we made our way back down that mountain, my son told me that one day he wants to bring his own children back to that mountain and to that trail, and to show them that they can go further than they think they can, just like he did that day. Let me tell you, after that hard hike, we rested well. Just as the mama Bighorn sheep guides her baby, and I was able to lead my son on that mountain, God goes before us. It reminds me of a story in the Bible, in the book of Exodus. God told the Israelites' leader, Moses, to guide the people away from Mount Sinai and into the promised land, a land marked by rest. But this was going to be a scary journey. There were many obstacles and armies in their way. How would they safely get to their resting place? Also, there was a very big problem. God told Moses that he would send an angel to go with them, but God himself would not go with them. You see, the people were disobedient and stubborn. They were not following God very well. And God said that because of this, he would not be going with them. Can you imagine a baby bighorn trying to navigate the cliffs without its mother's guidance? The Israelites' disobedience had left them in a very bad and dangerous position. Listen to the story in Exodus 33, verses 3-4. God said, "Go up to a fertile land, but I will not go with you, because I might destroy you on the way, since you are such a stubborn people." When the people heard this bad news, they became very sad. Listener, this was disastrous news. The people needed God to go with them. And Moses boldly asked God for mercy, and God showed mercy. God responded in verse 14, "My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest." Did you hear God's promise to them? God would go with them and give them rest. Just like a mama bighorn guiding her baby to a restful place. Listeners, something very important took place between the Israelites' journey long ago and our own lives today. Jesus came to earth and lived and died to take our punishment for sin and rose again to new life. Because of this, when we follow Jesus as our Savior, we have God's Holy Spirit inside of us. Do you know what that means? That means that God's presence is always with us, and He guides us safely across and through hard times, and He gives us rest. Listeners, you can trust God, and as you follow Him, He will lead you to restful places. All right, it's time to answer a question from one of our listeners. Today's listener question is made possible by the Kids Answers magazine by Answers in Genesis. Kids, if you are excited about God's wild and wonderful world, the Kids Answers magazine is perfect for you. Here are 3 reasons why you will love this magazine. First, it includes cool animal facts, so you can learn about the incredible creatures God has made. Second, it has fun science experiments to really discover God's creation with hands-on activities. And 3, it includes exciting stories so you can join wildlife adventures around the world. Parents, give your kids the gift of faith-filled learning. All new subscriptions come with a free gift, and you can learn more and subscribe at getanswers.org/kids or at the link in our show notes. Here is today's listener question.
Hello, my name is Ruby, and I'm 5 years old, and I live in Colorado, and I would like to know, how do whales poop?
That is a great question, Ruby. There are so many things to be curious about in nature. How do whales poop? Whales do not exactly poop like we do. A whale will poop while it's swimming, so it doesn't really stop to take care of its business. Its poop is mostly liquid, not solid, and it can be bright colors like bright neon green, red, and orange. Since it is mostly liquid, it does not sink to the bottom of the ocean, but instead it floats up at the top of the water's surface. Scientists study whale poop and can tell a whole lot about a whale from its poop, including if the whale is pregnant, what it's been eating, and even if the whale has been stressed out. Whale poop is also very important for the ocean. It is full of really great nutrients that help the ocean. Have you ever seen someone add fertilizer to a field or a garden to help things grow better? Well, whale poop is kind of like the fertilizer of the ocean. It is food for tiny living organisms called phytoplankton, and phytoplankton are very important for keeping the ocean healthy. So, whale poop has a wonderful purpose in God's design of keeping oceans clean and healthy. Thanks for your great question, Ruby. Stay curious about God's wild and wonderful world. And listeners, if you have something in nature that you are curious about, you can submit your questions at erinlynham.com/ask or at the link in our show notes. And Nat Theo Club members, make sure to click over at the end of this episode to our bonus video to discover 2 more amazing mountain climbing animals and hear a story of when I encountered one in the wild. You can find the link for that bonus video in our show notes or in your Nat Theo Club dashboard. All right, are you ready for the answer to our trivia question? Today's trivia question is, what is a baby bighorn sheep called? Now, I worked very hard throughout this lesson to not give away that answer. Are you ready? A baby bighorn sheep is called a lamb, just like a sheep you might see on a farm. Of course, a bighorn sheep lamb is quite different from a lamb on a farm. Now it's your turn to explore. Go find some climbing or balancing creatures. We learned all about how God designed bighorn sheep to climb and balance on cliffs. See if you can find an insect climbing up a wall, a squirrel climbing a tree or balancing across a fence, or a bird balancing on a tree branch. Consider the amazing ways that God designed climbing and balancing creatures to get where they need to go. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this lesson, please take a moment to share it with a friend and subscribe, rate, and review Nat Theo wherever you listen. Until next time, keep exploring God's wild and wonderful world.